In a city lost among the forests and hills, there lived a young man named Maxim. He was quiet and withdrawn, preferring to spend time alone, studying books on occultism and ancient traditions. His home was always filled with numerous old tomes, full of myths and legends about hidden treasures and enchanted objects. Each time he read, his imagination soared. He dreamed of majestic paladins and mysterious wizards, of battles between good and evil. Tales of enchanted objects and ghosts always intrigued him. One day, during another expedition through the surrounding forests, he overheard local elders recounting stories about a house that once belonged to a powerful sorcerer. This house, they said, was full of magic and mystique, but all who attempted to enter it did not return the same. The frightening rumors surrounding this place made it a spot that people avoided even on the brightest sunny days. Filled with reckless desire to learn more, Maxim decided to embark on a quest to find this mysterious house. He hoped that within its walls, he would discover something that would change his life, give it meaning. As he navigated through the dense trees, he finally emerged into a clearing where an old wooden house stood. The windows were shattered, and the door hung on one hinge, as if it had also been a lingering victim of time. Gathering all his courage, Maxim entered the house, where he was greeted by a gloomy silence. Dust floated in the air, and it seemed as though no human foot had stepped here for many years. The walls were covered in cobwebs, and the floor sparkled as it reflected the light from his flashlight. He began to explore room after room until he stumbled upon an old chest adorned with strange symbols that Maxim believed to be magical. Upon opening the chest, he discovered a multitude of bizarre items: shattered mirrors, fragments of spells, animal bones, and finally a doll. It was eerie, with long black hair and empty eyes, as if it were watching him. Maxim's heart raced. At first, he wanted to leave, but then his curiosity took over. He decided to take the doll with him, determined to uncover its story. Upon returning home, Maxim noticed a strange shift in his life. He started having peculiar dreams filled with dark symbols and whispers that left him waking in cold sweats. Gradually, his nerves began to fray. He frequently heard an unfamiliar voice, as if someone was calling his name. Nightmares plagued him, where he was surrounded by shadows, and each morning he awoke feeling consumed by a dark presence. The next day, feeling the need to share his experiences, he decided to confide in his friend Aiya. She was his anchor during tough times and knew many tales and legends. When she saw the doll, her face turned pale with horror. "This doll belonged to the sorcerer," she said. "It can claim your soul and fulfill wishes, but it will demand payment in return. You must be careful." Maxim understood he was in a situation he could not control. He knew he had to rid himself of the doll, but every time he tried, it mysteriously returned to his room, as if bound to him by something mystical. At night, its eyes glimmered in the darkness, and he heard its whisper, "Fulfill my will, and you will be happy." Maxim felt an overwhelming desire to rid himself of his fears, but at the same time, doubt gnawed at him. Something was not right with the doll, and he knew it. He began searching for ways to rid himself of the cursed doll and stumbled upon an ancient ritual that required sacrifice. It demanded courage, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for that. He spent countless hours studying the book, immersing himself in the atmosphere of incantations that illustrated how to rid oneself of ancient curses. Every day he battled his inner darkness, and with each passing day the doll became increasingly persistent. To his horror, his dreams grew more invasive. The doll was a constant presence in them, calling him to meet. Somehow, with each passing moment, he felt himself more and more entrapped by its powers. Therefore, in desperation to find a solution, he resolved to visit a local witch, an elderly woman renowned for her knowledge of magic and ancient rituals. She was well known in the area and had a reputation for being the wisest and most skilled of all. When Maxim entered her home and showed her the doll, her face revealed that she knew more about it than she spoke. "This doll demands a sacrifice," she said sadly. "To free yourself from it, you must perform a ritual, but be cautious, it may turn against you." Despite her warnings, Maxim was determined. He was willing to risk everything for the sake of his freedom. The witch explained that he needed to gather several items, natural elements, something from his past, and of course a sacrifice. He hesitated. When it came time to choose a sacrifice, he recalled a locket that had been passed down through generations in his family. He hesitated but ultimately decided that he would make the sacrifice in his quest for relief. At night, gathering at his home, Maxim placed the doll in the center of the room and began to recite the incantations. The room filled with a suffocating atmosphere, and everything around him began to gradually plunge into darkness. He knew something unusual was happening, but he could not stop. He felt the dark energy penetrating his consciousness, a sensuous sound, majestic and haunting all at once. As the final incantation escaped his lips, the air in the room became stifling. Silence turned oppressive, and he felt pressure around him, as if the very space was constricting. The doll screamed, its eyes sparkled like glass orbs, and Maxim sensed how the dark force tried to pry open his consciousness. "You have always needed me," the doll spoke, and Maxim realized that it was not just an object, it was a being that fed on fear and pain. With bewilderment, Maxim continued to chant incantations full of desperation and hope. The room started to tremble, as if an old violin was resonating under the strain of an unusual rhythm. As the last syllable was pronounced, the air in the room abruptly changed. Maxim felt the doll's presence begin to melt away, swirling into the air around him. The very essence of the place lost its materiality, and a cold shadow slowly faded away. When the doll finally shattered into pieces, the ashes began to scatter, dissipating into the air forever. Maxim felt his soul unfold, freed from an invisible burden. Joy overwhelmed him, and he realized that he had finally triumphed over his demons. But his joy was short-lived. As he turned to leave the house, a sharp chill enveloped his body. He understood that even though the doll was physically destroyed, a part of it remained in his life. He could not shake the feeling that its shadow was still nearby, waiting for the right moment to return. An internal coldness struck him, and he suddenly realized that this was only the beginning of something new and horrifying. Soon, his life took a turn for the worse. He tried to return to normalcy, but the world around him began to seem dull and unreal. He found it increasingly difficult to concentrate. Then he began noticing strange phenomena. Inexplicable shadows flickered at the corners of his vision. The sound of whispering began to disturb him again, and with each passing moment, he felt dark waves taking over his consciousness. He tried to ignore it, socializing with friends, working on projects, and finding solace in books, but the shadow would not retreat. One day, when he returned home, he found a piece of the shattered doll on his table. His heart raced. How was this possible? He immediately threw it away, but he sensed that this was merely a temporary solution. Despite all his efforts, he realized that this darkness had now become part of his life. Not all fears had left him. He began to explore how to finally rid himself of this problem, and discovered that the only way out was to look back into his past. He needed to find a way to confront his dark side, to accept it as an integral part of himself. Maxim returned to old books and began studying them with renewed determination. He realized that many of the ancient spells he had read could become the solution. He understood that his fears were not enemies but teachers. He started practicing meditation, finding a balance between light and darkness within himself. Months passed, and he felt increasingly confident. Maxim reached out to others who had experienced similar situations. He found like-minded individuals, and together they organized a support group. They discussed their fears, shared their own stories, and soon Maxim realized that this was not just his struggle, it was a common issue affecting many people. One day, during one of these meetings, he saw someone quietly chewing on their fear. It shattered Maxim's heart, and he understood he had to act. He began organizing cleansing rituals, and with each meeting, more people came, giving him strength and reassurance. Finally, rising to new heights, he was ready to face his shadow. On one occasion, when the warmth of human support filled the room, Maxim decided it was time to conduct a ritual. He gathered all the people around him and began reciting the incantations that had gathered dust on the shelves. The words flowed correctly, heading in the right direction, like streams of water, cleansing minds and hearts. When they finished, Maxim felt that the fears no longer held him. He had learned to accept the dark sides instead of hiding them. This was a process that took time, courage, and inner balance. Several months passed, and Maxim's life improved tremendously. He became an artist, depicting his dark and light sides in paintings. His works gained popularity. He shared his experiences, and his stories inspired others on the journey of self-discovery and healing. Then, one day when he attended an exhibition, he saw a woman holding a doll just like his used to be. His heart raced faster, but now he knew that this time he would not make the same mistakes. Instead of being afraid, he approached her and recounted his story. Perhaps here he found his true strength and understanding. Maxim's life transformed, but he knew that his dark sides had now become part of who he was, having learned lessons from past experiences and learning to live with a balance between light and darkness. He was now ready to help others who might find themselves in a similar situation. Ultimately, Maxim realized that the journey into one's own depths is not merely about seeking freedom from darkness, but about finding light within it. He became a genuine source of strength for himself and others, learning to find beauty in the shadows.